Athletes take forever to warm up, and the incidence of injury is still catastrophically high. Running should come with a government health warning. Preach! Testify! If you run as a sport, you should definitely think about subletting a chair in the waiting room of your local chiropractor or physio's office. And in the rogues gallery of culprits, lack of flexibility is definitely in the lineup. Now, I'll do a proper video on flexibility training, but here's my thoughts on stretching, and it may not be what you expect. I think stretching is a spiraling vicious cycle. It's like starting off on Vicodin, then 3 years later, you end up mainlining the skag. I know this seems like crazy talk, but I don't think that stretching the way I see athletes do it is in their best interests. Kids don't stretch, and they're fine. Now, I know people say, well, that's because they're young and they're growing. But as teenage and then adulthood creep up on us, we spend less and less time operating at full range. And I think that as we get older, we're undoing the good of childhood. And then during our teenage, some of us go to the weights room and start doing strength training for sport. We're starting to use barbells, and we're restricting our full range of movement. Example, deadlifts, bench. As a teenager, I could turn on a dime and burst into a full-speed sprint to be first in the dinner line. As soon as I started training for sprinting, I had to do a 10-minute stretch routine to get from the bedroom to the bathroom. I mean, do you genuinely think that the body was designed to have to do a whole load of systematic stretches before running away from danger? This isn't a natural state of affairs. We know that the body adapts to stimulus, so if the stimulus is causing the muscles to tighten and shorten overnight, is the answer to do another stimulus to counteract the first stimulus, or just change the first stimulus? The body's smart. It's in the business of protecting us. If the natural state of the body is agility and movement to get away from danger, then just imagine how much of a danger what you've just done must pose that it thinks that that's a worse threat than the jungle cat. Sprinters specifically start hitting the weights at less than full range and overloading their half-range movements. What this does is it resets the Golgi tendons to fire for tension at less than full range. Golgi tendons are like little stretch receptors. They detect how much your muscle or your tendon is stretching. And also, we overload certain exercises while not equaling the load on the other side. And I think that this is what causes a lot of the flexibility issues, because now you're operating at half range in a loaded state and having to spend all this other time stretching yourself back out to full range. You get into this vicious cycle. You're creeping every night, and the only way to get as loose as a goose is to throw some Sam Cooke on, down half a bottle of wine, and get your stretch on. Well, so CrossFitters say. But A, I don't drink, and B, there are far better uses for Sam Cooke than stretching. So to avoid Freddie's flexibility nightmare, your first answer is to return to expressing full range of movement in your exercises, and then pepper your workouts with dumbbells to increase the range even more. If you reset those Golgi tendons, it'll take more range to detect unbearable tension before they fire. The second way to do it is to keep the push-to-pull ratio ever so slightly pull dominant by about 10%, and then keep the bend to squat to lunge ratio ever so slightly to the lunge. Normally, it's bend 100%, squat is 90% of bend if full range, and lunge is 75% of squat, but I'd actually take that up to about 80. And getting those ratios back is going to mean that your muscles are going to feel less sure, because they are less sure, because you got the ratios back. And here's the big body lie. When people do half range, they feel sore and tight the next day. It's a struggle to sit on the loo. And they're thinking, while they're trying to get onto the loo, imagine if I'd done full range. Imagine how much worse it would be. But here's a secret. The first session's always going to suck. So you have the choice to immunize yourself once with full range, or do half range and then have to increase the range and go through muscle soreness session after session after session. And muscle soreness inhibits full range of movement and messes up your movement mechanics for the next few days. If you go full range yesterday, you can go full range today. It's just sore. But if you went half range yesterday, Now you've set half range as the new limit, and it's still just to get there, let alone full range. Sprinters aren't gymnasts. They're not looking to be Mr. Fantastic. And while flexi is sexy, sprinters are just looking for long, strong muscles. Doing a dynamic warm-up makes sense, but spending 30 to 40 minutes sitting on the ground doing static stretches, that doesn't. And that's why the third idea is to use the weights program itself to actually increase flexibility. Weights can make you stronger. Particular exercises can make the muscles longer. Put those two together and... Hey Steve, what happens? Abracadabra. Exactly. You get strong and long. But if your muscles keep shortening up like a woolly jumper in a hot wash, that's a sign there's something wrong with your programming. So see the gym as a stretch shack as much as a strength studio, and lengthen while you strengthen. Next video on this, I'll conjure up a few exercises that you might not have seen to help you with this, but in the meantime, bust me a thumbs up, because let me tell you something. Bustin' makes me feel good. And if you like my vibe, please subscribe. Woo! Woo!